Fellas, I'm going to be predicting the top 5 of every UFC weight class a year from now. So that means I've essentially got to predict every single fight that takes place in the next 12 months accurately. I've got to predict the state of the UFC, how the contenders are looking, how every rankings are looking, and I've just essentially got to predict the state of every weight class a year from now. So we'll waste no time, we'll go straight in there predicting the top 5 in every single UFC division a year from now. And we'll start off with the heavyweight division. Now you look at the current state of the heavyweight division. I don't think it's going to change too much, but I think there will be a few minor changes here and there. I think the champion's going to change, and obviously we'll see what I do now. At number 5, I'm going to keep it at Alexander Volkov. I think Volkov's going to stay at number 5, and I think he deserves that number 5 ranking, basically because he's going to beat everyone ranked below him. He's already beaten the Rosenstruck, the Romanov, the Tatu Ivaza, Sergey Spivak he'd beat as well. But I don't think he beats anyone above him. He's already lost to Curtis Blades. He's already lost to Cyril Gane. He's already lost to Tom Aspinall. I think he'd lose to Sergey Pavlovich. And I think he's going to be that perfect gatekeeper for the top 5. You beat Volkov, welcome to the top 5. But everyone else in the division, Volkov is probably going to be good enough to beat because of how good of a striker he is. And that he's, been around the heavyweight division for a long time. So for Volkov, I think he's going to stay that top 5 ranking. He's not going to go on a massive downfall because the rest of the heavyweight division ain't beating him. But everyone ranked above him, essentially the elite of the division, Volkov will not be good enough to beat them. So I think Volkov's going to stay top 5. Number 4, I'm going Cyril Gane. I'm putting Cyril Gane at 4 because I don't know if he's taking MMA that seriously, because he isn't jumping at the opportunity to fight Tom Aspinall. He doesn't want to test himself. He rejected the fight with Curtis Blades, rejected the fight with Pavlovich and Aspinall, and he seems like he only wants the easy route. He wants to fight the Sergey Spivaks, the Tatu Ivazas. Wouldn't surprise me if his next fight was actually against Marcin Tybura. Seems like he just wants the easy route every single time. I think he'd lose to Tom Aspinall. I think he'd lose to Curtis Blades. I think Pavlovich is a difficult fight for him as well. But to give him respect, you've got to include him in the top 5 because of what he has done already. He has beaten Alexander Volkov, so I've got to put him above Volkov. He has got a pretty good resume as well in the heavyweight division. He beat Sergey Spivak, he beat Derek Lewis, Tuivasa, Rosenstrike, all these guys. So he's already got a pretty decent resume, but he hasn't beaten anyone elite. And by the way that he's managing his career, like he's shooting movies and everything as well, I just don't think he's motivated, and I don't think he really takes MMA that seriously. So I'm going to put him at number 4. He's a really difficult fight for everyone in the division, but the way that he's managing himself in his current career, I don't think I can put him above any of the hungrier guys in the division. So for Cyril Gane, I'm putting him at number 4. I think a year from now, he's probably lost another fight. He might have won one and lost one, but I'm putting him at number 4. And then at number 3, I'm going Curtis Blades. Yeah, Curtis Blades is a really tricky fight for everyone in the division because he's probably the best wrestler in the division, or at least one of the best wrestlers in the division, but he's also dangerous because of how powerful he is, and he has got heavy hands. And I'm going to put him above Cyril Gane. I think if him and Cyril Gane ever do fight, he will win, and he has also obviously beaten Alexander Volkov. But again, similar to the rest of the guys, he's already lost to Sergey Pavlovich. I don't think he's going to beat Tom Aspinall at UFC 304, so I'm going to put him at that number 3 ranking. He's also got a really good win over Jelton Almeida as well, which you've got to give him respect for and put him high rank. So for Curtis Blades, I think he's going to deserve that number 3 spot. I don't think he's ever going to fight for a belt again after UFC 304, and I don't think he's ever going to be one of the, he is one of the elite of the division, but you know what I mean, he's never going to be the top number 1 or top number 2 guy of the division, but he's a difficult fight for everyone. I think he's going to be one of those inconsistent guys where sometimes he wins, sometimes he loses against the top 5 guys. I'm going to put Blades at number 3. At number 2, I'm going to put Jelton Almeida. I understand Curtis Blades is beating Jelton Almeida, so you're probably wondering why I'm putting Almeida at number 2. First reason, Jelton Almeida is coming off that win over Alexander Romanov, and his next fight is most likely going to be the loser of Pavlovich and Volkov, in which I think it's going to be Volkov. And I think Almeida does beat Volkov, or it's going to be against Cyril Gane, in which I think Almeida beats Cyril Gane as well. So I think he's going to get a big step up in the rankings as Almeida, especially if he is Cyril Gane. And I just think he's going to be winning more consistently than Curtis Blades. I think Curtis Blades, like I said, he's going to be one of those fighters that he might win one, he might lose one. He's not really going to get put together a winning streak. Whereas I can see Jelton Almeida, as boring as he is, I can see him being more consistent than Curtis Blades. He is the best grappler in the division as of right now. I'm going to put Jelton Almeida at number 2 a year from now. I think Sergey Pavlovich is a really difficult fight for him, and so is Tom Aspinall. And obviously he has lost to Curtis Blades, but I just think he's going to be a lot more consistent than Blades in this next year. And I'm going to put him at that number 2 spot. It's a bold pick, but you can't deny, even though he's boring, Almeida is one of the best in the division in my opinion, and I'm going to put him at number 2. Number 1 is Sergey Pavlovich. I think we've already seen the best versus the best at UFC 295 in the co-main event when we saw Pavlovich take on Aspinall. Sergey Pavlovich is really good. He finished Curtis Blades already. Obviously, he finished Tatu Ivalza. He finished Derek Lewis. I think in the next year, well, I think this weekend he's going to beat Alexander Volkov, which is obviously going to push him further in the rankings. I think he's a difficult fight for Cyril Gane. I think that's a bit of a 50-50 fight. I think, like I said, he's already beaten Curtis Blades, and I think Almeida is also a winnable fight for Sergey Pavlovich. He's a good wrestler, but he's also a really, really good boxer. He's got accurate, dangerous hands, super powerful, and I think him and Aspinall are going to be fighting. I don't think UFC 295 is going to be the last time we see Aspinall versus Pavlovich, to be honest. I think I'm going to put him at number 1. I think he will be the most dangerous and the best heavyweight in the world, outside of the champion, who is going to be Tom Aspinall, because it ain't going to be John Jones, because John Jones is going to face Stipe, and then after that fight, they're both going to retire, in which either Aspinall's going to get promoted to the undisputed champion, or is going to beat everyone else. I think Aspinall's a lock for the heavyweight division. I don't think anyone is really going to beat Tom Aspinall unless he gets clipped. Like I said, Sergey Pavlovich has the best chance. Curtis Blades has a good chance as well. But I'm picking Aspinall to beat Blades. He's already beaten Alexander Volkov. I think he's going to beat Blades. He's already beaten Sergey Pavlovich as well. So I think Tom Aspinall's going to be the heavyweight champion a year from now. And that's probably one of my most confident picks with Tom Aspinall, because he is one of the best in the world. I think he's the only fighter in the pound for pound rankings who doesn't hold an undisputed belt as well. So Tom Aspinall, heavyweight champion. And that is my top 5, technically top 6 rankings for the heavyweight division a year from now. And then for the light heavyweight division, I think there's going to be a few changes in this division. I think Jamal Hill, I think he's going to be moved all the way down to number 5. I think he's probably... he's difficult to gauge with Jamal Hill because he's beaten Johnny Walker and Glover Teixeira, but he's just been KO'd by Alex Pereira. I think Jan Blachowicz gives him a really difficult fight. I think Yuri Prohaska gives him a really difficult fight, and I just can't see Jamal Hill beating anyone else in the current top 5. Maybe like an Alexander Rakic he can beat. I think he'd lose to Ankalaev, Yuri, and probably lose to Jan Blachowicz as well. I think he's going to keep that top 5 ranking. Like I said, he has only lost twice in his career. Former champion, beating Glover Teixeira, beating Johnny Walker, so I'm going to give him that number 5 spot, but I think he can lose to a lot of the other guys in the top 5. And then just above Jamal Hill, I'm giving Jan Blachowicz. You've got to give Blachowicz his respect. Again, another former champion. I would argue that he give Alex Pereira his toughest fight at light heavyweight. Out of everyone Pereira has faced at light heavyweight so far, I think Jan Blachowicz has been his toughest test. He also went to a draw with Magomed Ankalaev, who's probably going to be fighting for a belt next after Yuri Prohaska. And Jan Blachowicz is just a really good fighter. He's dangerous on the feet, really, really good kickboxer, and he's also got really good wrestling. He's well-rounded, and I think he could figure anyone out in the division. And even though I don't think he's going to be a champion again, I think he deserves that number 4 spot just above Jamal Hill, because he has got much better wins than Hill, and he has been, I guess, more consistent. Number 3, this is a bit of a big step up and a bit of a guess, but I'm going Carlos Ulberg. Light heavyweight isn't one of the most competitive divisions. It is quite a stale division, and I feel like Carlos Ulberg is one of the few in this division that is young, hungry, and dangerous. He has finished most of his recent fights. He's just coming off that really quick finish over Alonzo Menifield at UFC St. Louis. He's fast, he's well-rounded, he's dangerous. I think he's going to beat Anthony Smith at UFC 303, and I think a year from now he's going to get into the rankings. I don't know if I'd pick him to beat Yuri Prohaska or Ankalaev or Pereira, so that's why I'm putting him in at number 3. But I think he could definitely have what it takes to beat Jamal Hill. In fact, if that fight would have gone down, I probably would have picked Ulberg to beat Hill. Him versus Blachowicz is a close fight as well, and even though he hasn't beaten anyone elite as of yet, I think Carlos Ulberg is the future of the light heavyweight division. I'm putting him at number 3. I really do think he's going to be top 5 ranked a year from now. And then number 2 for the light heavyweight division, that's Yuri Prohaska. Yeah, Yuri Prohaska, he's just so dangerous. He gets it done every single time. The fight with Alexander Rakic, he was doing well on the feet with Alex Pereira as well. Submitted Glover Teixeira. He obviously KO'd Dominic Reyes out cold, KO'd Volkan Oezdemir. Yuri Prohaska is one of the most crafty, unorthodox strikers in the UFC, and it works. I think he's one of the best. I don't know if I don't think I'd pick him to beat Pereira at UFC 303, but with that being said, Yuri is definitely one of the top guys in the division, and I'm putting him at number 2. Former champion as well. Yeah, Yuri's definitely one of the best. I'm putting him at number 2 a year from now. At number 1, I'm doing Alex Pereira. I don't think he's going to be a champion a year from now, because I think the champion is going to be Magomed Ankalaev. I think Alex Pereira is going to be number 1 for a while. Like I said, he's already got a really good resume. He's beaten Jamal Hill, he's beaten Jan Blachowicz, he's beaten Yuri Prohaska, and I think he's going to beat him again. But I think Magomed Ankalaev is a nightmare matchup for Alex Pereira, because he's dangerous on the feet, as we've seen multiple times now, even in his last fight against Johnny Walker when he KO'd him. He's also got really good wrestling, probably the best wrestler in this division as of right now. We talked about Jan Blachowicz. giving Pereira problems with wrestling. Ankalaev was the one who gave Blachowicz problems with wrestling. I think, yeah, Ankalaev, if he's smart and he mixes it up, he's definitely got what it takes to beat Pereira. He can keep him guessing. He can mix it up with his grappling. And I think a year from now, I know a lot of Pereira fans ain't going to like this, but I'm putting Magomed Ankalaev as the champion a year from now. I think he's going to be the light heavyweight champion a year from now. Middleweight. At number 5 in the middleweight division, I'm going Imavov. This might be a bit of an odd take. I think Imavov is going to be number 5. I know there's a lot of elite people in this division up and coming. We've got the Sharputer Magomedovs, the Ikram Aliskerovs, the Bo Nichols, but I don't think they're going to reach the top 5 a year from now. And I'm putting Imavov at number 5. I still think he's going to be ranked in the top 5. I just don't think he's going to be a champion. We saw him against Sean Strickland. He lost to Strickland comfortably. And to be honest, I don't think... I mean, it was an early stoppage that he got against Jared Cannonier, but he's a really good striker. He's fairly underrated in the middleweight division as well. So I think Nasruddin Imavov is going to get that number 5 ranking. And then number 4, I'm going Chimaev. Now, Chimaev, I don't think he's going to fight for about a year from now because, like I said, he's dealing with illnesses. He's one of the most inactive ranked fighters in the UFC right now. I think he's going to fight once in the next year, probably against like a Paulo Costa or a Brendan Allen, someone around that top 10 to top 5 ranking, and he's going to finish them, and then they're going to push him into the top 5, probably to get a title fight soon. But I don't think he would have got that title fight a year from now. I think 1 year from now, Chimaev's going to be in the top 5 after he gets another win. I don't know when this fight is going to happen, but he's going to get a win, move and progress into the top 5, but I don't think he can get anything above a ranked 4 when he hasn't beaten anyone when he hasn't beaten anyone elite in the division. So for Chimaev, I'm putting at number 4. At number 3, I'm putting Dricus du Plessis. I'm putting the current champion, Dricus du Plessis. Now, I think he's going to lose to Israel Adesanya at UFC 305, and you'll see why I've put him at number 3 rather than number 1 and number 2, because Dricus du Plessis is going to be at number 3, because at number 2, we're going to have Israel Adesanya, because I think Israel Adesanya is going to beat Dricus du Plessis at UFC 305, become the middleweight champion, and then history is going to rewrite itself, and we're going to see Sean Strickland defeat Israel Adesanya for the belt after UFC 305. And you're probably wondering, right, who have you put as the champion then? If Sean Strickland beats Adesanya and Adesanya beats Dricus du Plessis, who is the champion? Hear me out. Robert Whittaker. What's going to happen? Israel Adesanya is going to beat Dricus du Plessis at UFC 305. Then they're going to do the rematch between Strickland and Adesanya. Strickland's going to beat Adesanya, and then Robert Whittaker's going to come out of nowhere, cash in the money in the bank after he's just beaten Ikram Aliskerov, and they're going to see Strickland versus Robert Whittaker for the middleweight belt, and I'm picking Robert Whittaker to beat Sean Strickland. I think after this fight with Ikram Aliskerov, Whittaker's going to take some time off and wait for his title shot. Strickland's definitely next in line after Adesanya, so I think Strickland's going to beat Adesanya, and then we're going to see Strickland versus Whittaker, in which I think Whittaker is going to beat Strickland across 5 rounds. So I'm predicting that a year from now, Robert Whittaker is going to be the middleweight champion of the world after he defeats Sean Strickland for the middleweight belt. That's my pick. It's a bit of a bold take, but I really do think that's the way that this middleweight division is going to go. I think the belt is going to change hands multiple times, and Robert Whittaker will be the champion. Welterweight. Ranked number 5 at welterweight, I think he's going to be Ian Garry. Yeah, he's undefeated. He's got a lot of good wins, but he had the decision win over Neil Magny, the decision win over Jeff Neal. He's a really good striker with solid takedown defense, but I don't know if I trust him to beat the Shafkats. I don't know if I trust him to beat the Bilals. I don't think he'd beat Leon Edwards. I don't think he'd beat Jack Della Maddalena, but I do think he's going to be in the top 5. I'd probably pick him to beat a Kobe Covington, and I just think he's going to be one of these guys that are kind of like the gatekeeper of the top 5. He's going to be hanging around the top 5 rankings for a while. I don't know if he's going to get a title fight, but for Ian Garry, I'll put him at number 5. He's going to be hanging around the top 5 for a while. I just don't know if he beats the other guys in the top 5 of the welterweight division. So for Ian Garry, I'll put him at number 5. Number 4, Bilal Muhammad. I think Bilal Muhammad's days are numbered. I think after UFC 304, we might see Bilal Muhammad go on a bit of a losing streak. I think Leon Edwards beats him at UFC 304. I think he could even finish him. And then I think after that, we might even see Bilal Muhammad face like maybe a Shavkat or a Jack Della Maddalena, in which I think both of those guys beat Bilal Muhammad. Bilal Muhammad's got a really good resume. Gilbert Burns decision, Sean Brady finish, Wonderboy, Vicente Luque, but I don't think he beats the elite of the division. Leon Edwards was piecing him up in that first fight, and I think he does it again. I think he loses to Shavkat. I think he loses to Jack Della Maddalena, and I think Bilal Muhammad, even though he's going to be hanging around this top 5, I think he probably beats Ian Garry as well, because he is really good because of his wrestling. I just don't think he beats the elite of the division. I'm putting Bilal Muhammad at number 4. And then at number 3, this is a bit weird, but I'm going to put Kamaru Usman, because rightfully so, he is number 1 because of what he has done in the welterweight division, but you can't just hog the number 1 ranking when you're not fighting. Like, he lost to Chimaev and he's on a 3-fight losing streak. You can't really just hog the number 1 ranking. I think Shavkat and JDM are going to be a lot more active than him, and I think they're going to be winning a lot more than him, and I think the division's going to be moving in. Even though Kamaru Usman has got this great legacy at 170, I don't know when he's going to fight, and I don't know if he's going to fight, and I can't really just keep him at number 1 if he's not fighting, so I'm going to move him down to number 3, not necessarily saying that he's going to lose or anything like that, but I think the number 2 are going to be, number 1 and number 2 are going to be occupied, and number 2 is going to be Shavkat Rakhmonov. I'll tell you why Shavkat's at 2. I think Leon Edwards beats Shavkat Rakhmonov, and I also think Jack Della Maddalena beats Shavkat Rakhmonov. Everyone keeps hyping up Shavkat in the division, and rightfully so. He's finished everyone he's faced, but no one seems to be talking about Jack Della Maddalena. This guy is an absolute monster for anyone stylistically. He's got great judo, great submission defense, really good jiu-jitsu, but he's also the most dangerous boxer in the division. The way that he put Gilbert Burns out of there, I think he's a stylistic nightmare for both Shavkat and Leon Edwards. But I've got to put Leon Edwards at number 1 just as the champion, just because I don't think Leon Edwards loses to anyone. I think Shavkat's a difficult fight. I think JDM's an even more difficult fight, but I don't think a year from now we would have seen Leon Edwards lose to these guys, because he's going to face Belal Muhammad and probably win at UFC 304. He might fight against one time this year against either Shavkat or JDM, in which I would probably favour Leon to win just because of what he's done in the division. And then I think a year from now he probably hasn't fought, so I'll put Leon Edwards as the champion a year from now, and that is my top 5 for the welterweight division. Lightweight, I think the division, it's pretty hard to predict where it's going to be because, well, I'll tell you why. Number 5, I've gone for Michael Chandler. I think Michael Chandler is going to beat Conor McGregor later this year. Obviously, they're going to do McGregor versus Chandler. Michael Chandler's going to win, and we're going to see Michael Chandler get moved up into the rankings. The UFC are going to want Chandler to fight for the belt, and they're going to put him at number 5. I don't think they can really put him anything above 5 when he's lost to half the people in the division. But I think Michael Chandler will progress to number 5, and number 4 will be Gamrot. Gamrot's kind of like the NPC of the lightweight division. He's a really good wrestler, but he deserves to be ranked because of what he has done, and I think he will be top 5, but I just don't think he's ever going to be a champion. I mean, it was only not that long ago when he fought Beneil Dariush and got absolutely smoked by him, but he has got a win over Arman Sarukian, and he is a really good wrestler. He's coming off that win over Rafael Dos Anjos. I think Gamrot can stay at number 4 in the division, just above Michael Chandler. Number 3, now, here's the thing. I don't know where Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje are going to be a year from now. In fact, I don't think Dustin Poirier is going to be in the UFC from now. I'm going to put Justin Gaethje just because I don't know what they're going to be doing. I think Gaethje might have one more fight and still be ranked a year from now, but he's not going to be fighting for a while after UFC 300. I don't know if Dustin Poirier is even going to be in the UFC anymore a year from now, so it's really hard to predict what those guys are doing, but as of right now, I would probably put Justin Gaethje at number 3. I mean, he's beaten Michael Chandler, he has beaten Dustin Poirier and lost to him as well. He's got a really, really good resume at 155, so I'd put him at number 3. I can't really put him anything above number 3, though, because I don't know what he's going to be doing. And then number 2 and number 1, I'm keeping the same. Charles Oliveira, Arman Sarukian. Oliveira beats every single fighter in the division outside of Arman Sarukian in Islam. Arman Sarukian, I think Arman Sarukian is going to be like the Max Holloway. Like, we had Volkanovski as the champion, and then Holloway's the number 1 guy. We had Israel Adesanya as the champion, and then Robert Whittaker as the number 1 guy. And I think for the lightweight division, we're going to have Islam Makhachev as the champion, and then Arman Sarukian as the number 1 guy. I think Arman Sarukian beats everyone in the division. He's going to have a really good resume. He's just going to beat everyone in the division besides Islam Makhachev. Islam's unbeatable. I don't see him losing, and I think he's going to hold on to that lightweight belt for the longest time, and I do think he beats Arman Sarukian when they fight. So that is my top 5 for the lightweight rankings. Kind of hard to predict. Featherweight. For the top 5 at featherweight, number 5, I'm going Arnold Allen. I think Arnold Allen's a really, really solid contender in the division. I mean, he's just really dangerous. He's really scrappy. He's really well-rounded. And look at what Holloway's doing to guys like Justin Gaethje and Korean Zombie. Arnold Allen's performance against Max Holloway wasn't even that bad. It was probably one of the best performances against Max Holloway. Obviously, that brutal finish over Dan Hooker. He's actually got a pretty decent resume. I think he's going to beat Giga Chikadze at UFC 304. And I believe a year from now, Arnold Allen will be ranked in the top 5. I don't necessarily think he's going to win a belt or fight for a belt, but I think he's going to be one of those guys that stays in the top 5 and just puts on scraps every single time. At number 4, I'm putting Diego Lopez. He's got a fight booked at UFC 303 against Brian Ortega, and I'm picking Diego Lopez to win this fight. And if he does beat Brian Ortega, without a doubt, he's going to be ranked in the top 5. So I think Diego Lopez is going to have a huge jump. I think he's ranked number 14th. I think he's going to go from 14th for a year from now. He's going to be number 4, one of the best in the featherweight division. Above Diego Lopez is going to be Movsar Evloev. He has beaten Diego Lopez before. He's undefeated. He's also beaten Arnold Allen. And I think Movsar Evloev, even though he's boring and, you don't really want to see him fight, I think he is going to be one of these title contenders. I think he's going to fight for a belt probably in around the next year, because he's really good. He's not the most interesting. He's got really good wrestling. His striking seems to be all right as well. So for Movsar Evloev, because he has beaten Diego Lopez and Arnold Allen, I'll put him above those guys. I'll put Movsar Evloev at number 3 a year from now. At number 2, I think Alexander Volkanovski. Yeah, Volkanovski, he's one of the best in the division. I mean, he was the best in the division a couple months ago. He is completely wiped out most of the featherweight division, to be honest with you. I think he's going to be at the number 2 ranking, though. Obviously, I don't think he's going to be the champion a year from now. And I don't even think he's going to be number 1, because number 1 is going to be Ilia Topuria, the guy that has already finished, KO'd Alexander Volkanovski, undefeated as well. Not undefeated, though, a year from now, because I think Max Holloway is going to be the featherweight champion a year from now. I think that fight between Holloway and Topuria is 50-50, but to make things interesting, I think Holloway definitely has what it takes to be a champion. His performance at UFC 300 was fantastic. He's got an absolutely stacked resume at 145. He's beaten so many people. He's a stylistic problem for Ilia Topuria. Fuck it. A year from now, we're going to see Max Holloway become the featherweight champion of the world. That is my top 5 for the featherweight division. But a year from now, it's kind of hard to predict the bantamweight division because it's such a competitive division, and there's a bunch of fights that are just 50-50 coin flips. So it's really hard to predict the bantamweight division. But I think at number 5 in the rankings, I'm going to go Umar Nurmagomedov. Now, obviously, he's got a fight booked with Corey Sandhagen later this year in August. I think Sandhagen takes that fight. It's super close, and Nurmagomedov's on an absolute streak, and I can understand why people are picking him to win. But based off what I've seen, I'm leaning towards Sandhagen to win that fight. But I don't think it's going to be over for Nurmagomedov, which is why he's ranked. I think the UFC are then going to give Nurmagomedov a top 10 ranked opponent. Maybe not as high as Sandhagen, but they're going to give him someone in the top 10, maybe like a Song Yadong, in which I think Nurmagomedov's going to win. He's going to get a good win over somebody else in the top 10, and I think they're going to put Umar Nurmagomedov in the top 5. The UFC obviously want Nurmagomedov to succeed, which is why they've booked him against Corey Sandhagen. I think he loses to Sandhagen, but he's going to get a good win, bounce back, put a rank number 5 in the division, overtake Henry Cejudo or whoever's ranked number 5 at the time. And I think number 5 ranked a year from now will be Umar Nurmagomedov. He might even beat Sandhagen. I would lean towards Sandhagen winning that fight. And then at number 4, we've got Petr Yan. You can't not include Petr Yan in the rankings. Former champion, and he's just an absolute killer. He's so dangerous, such a good fighter, coming off that really good win over Song Yadong. And I don't think unless he rematches these top guys, I don't think he's really going to be losing to any of these other guys. I mean, I can definitely see him losing to Nurmagomedov, and he has had a rough past few fights, obviously losing to Sterling twice, losing to Sean O'Malley in a very, very close fight, which was, arguably a win for Petr Yan, and then getting dominated by Murad. But he's also got a win over Corey Sandhagen, which obviously can keep him in the rankings as well. So I feel like Petr Yan, he's going to be at the top of the bantamweight division forever. I don't see him ever falling out the top 5, and I'm going to put him at number 4 a year from now. I think he's going to be in that number 4 spot, just a really competitive fighter at the upper end of the bantamweight division. Then at number 3, I've got Davison Figueiredo. Now, also on that Abu Dhabi card, we've got Davison Figueiredo going to be taking on Marlon Vera, and I've got Figueiredo winning that fight as well. Obviously, former flyweight champion, and his bantamweight run already has been super impressive. He had that fight with Rob Font, in which he battered Rob Font, and then he goes at UFC 300, faces Cody Garbrandt, puts on a really good performance by submitting Cody Garbrandt, and now he's matched against Marlon Vera, who has just fought for a belt, and I think Davison Figueiredo is going to win that fight. I think he's going to use his grappling offensively really well, and we've notoriously seen in the past that Marlon Vera struggles with grappling, and then on the feet, Davison Figueiredo is a really hard hitter. I've got Figueiredo beating Marlon Vera. He could even get it done by finish, and I think he's going to take that number 3 spot, and I think a year from now we will see Figueiredo ranked number 3. Now again, I don't know who he's going to be matched up against after Marlon Vera. I don't know if he is going to have a fight this time next year after the Vera fight, but I'm going to stay safe, and I think Davison Figueiredo will be in the rankings of the bantamweight division. He will be a title challenger, he will be a contender, and I will put him at number 3. At number 2, I'm going Corey Sandhagen. Now, he's going to beat Umar Nurmagomedov, and if he gets a win over Nurmagomedov, he is going to get a title shot undoubtedly. Now, I think the title shot is going to be between Murad and Sean O'Malley, obviously, and I have Sean O'Malley winning that fight, and I think Sean O'Malley will beat Merab Dvalishvili, another really, really close fight, and Merab will be at number 1, and then they're going to do Corey Sandhagen versus O'Malley, in which, again, I think O'Malley takes it. These are the two most difficult fights for him in the division, and I honestly, it's such a hard one to pick, but based off what we've seen with O'Malley recently, I've got to pick him. He's a really fast, sharp, powerful striker. One of the best in the UFC, solid takedown defense, and even though Sandhagen's looked really good in his career, he's also been submitted by, what's his name, Aljamain Sterling when O'Malley KO'd him. He got beaten by Peter Yan. He got beaten by TJ Dillashaw. I know that was a really questionable decision, but he still lost to him, and I just think Sean O'Malley's more consistent from what we've seen at the moment, and even though Merab, I understand why people are picking Merab to beat O'Malley. I think O'Malley, he's so dangerous on the feet, and Merab's been caught a lot on the feet, and I just don't think you can be caught a lot when you're facing O'Malley. So I'm going, this is what I think the state of the bantamweight division will look like in the next year, and look how competitive this top 5 is. If this really is the state of the bantamweight division in the next year, this is such a competitive top 5. And then we've got the flyweight division. I think it might change a little bit this time next year. For number 5, I'm going Tyra. Now, I do think Tyra might struggle against these top guys, because we've seen in the past in his fights that even though his stand-up has improved, compared to the rest of the top 5, Tatsuro Tyra is behind when it comes to the stand-up, because he's such a phenomenal grappler. And I think I could definitely see him losing to like a Brandon Moreno or a Brandon Royval, or just somebody with decent hands in the division, but I can definitely see him bouncing back and getting straight back into the flyweight rankings. I don't know how his fights are going to play out, but I trust that Tatsuro Tyra will be in the top 5 rankings of the flyweight division come this time next year, and I believe, to be safe, that he will be number 5. And at number 4, I'm going Brandon Moreno. Yeah, Brandon Moreno, he's had a bit of a tricky few fights. He's on a 2-fight losing streak. Obviously, he lost to Pantoja at UFC 290, and then early this year, he lost to Brandon Royval, and now he's currently ranked number 2, and it's not necessarily that I think he's going to lose to a lot of these guys. I just think the division's going to be moving on without him. He already stated that he wants to take some time off. I don't know how long he wants to take off, but I think the division's going to be moving. People are going to be taking his place, and I think this time next year he will be ranked number 4. And on top of that, I wouldn't say that Moreno's still one of the... I'd say he's still one of the best in the division, but it's not. It wouldn't be a shocker if you were to pick a different contender over Moreno. Like, I don't think if you were to pick Tyra over Moreno, or just any up-and-coming flyweight over Moreno, it would necessarily be a shocking pick. So I'm going to put Brandon Moreno at number 4 a year from now. I think he's still definitely got to be in the top 5, but I don't know how active he's going to be and how many solid wins he will have. And just above Moreno, I've got Brandon Royval. Obviously, he's got the win over Brandon Moreno, so he's got to be at number 3. I think Brandon Royval, I can definitely see him beating some guys. I can see him beating a few of these up-and-comers, kind of being like a mini gatekeeper for the flyweight division, but I can also see him losing to Mohamed Makayev. I think Mohamed Makayev will beat Brandon Royval. I think what's going to happen is Makayev's going to beat Manel Kape. They're going to do Makayev versus Pantoja, in which Pantoja is going to beat Makayev, and I can definitely see Makayev facing somebody in the top 5, maybe a Moreno, maybe a Royval, but I think Makayev will be on the top of the flyweight division come this time next year, and I only think there's going to be 2 fighters. Well, in fact, I would only say there's 3 fighters in the flyweight division that I think beat Mohamed Makayev. I think Pantoja's one of them. I think Moreno's another one of them, but I don't think they're ever going to fight, which is why he's ranked above Moreno. And I think Steve Erceg is going to be at the top of the flyweight division. It seems like it's rumoured that Steve Erceg is going to be taking on Kai Kara France for UFC 305. I think he beats Kai Kara France. He's already had a super competitive fight with Pantoja already, and I think he would beat most people in the top 5, especially Makayev. So I think Steve Erceg, come this time next year, he will be ranked number 1, and I think we will be getting prepared to see Steve Erceg versus Pantoja Part 2. I still think Pantoja is going to be the champion. I think he beats Mohamed Makayev or Manel Kape. He's already beaten Manel Kape before, and it seems like that is going to be the next title fight in the flyweight division. So I'm going to say the champion this time next year is going to be Pantoja, and that is going to be what I think the flyweight division looks like this time next year. But that is how I predict that the top 5 of every UFC weight class is going to look a year from now. Let me know your thoughts on these rankings. Is there any bold takes that you would disagree with? How do you think the rankings are going to look? But thank you for watching.